of you who aren't here. There it is. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so last class we finished our budget, and some of you turned them in, some of you didn't. So make sure that if you did not turn in your budget, that it's in there because I am grading it. So this one, see, yep, same story. Half of you do it, half of you don't. So that story needs to change. You need to start doing your stuff. But we talked about, let me go to the notes. We talked about some general guidelines in how to budget. And let's see, somebody's texting. Let me get there. Okay, chat. Who said anything? Yes, I did, Abby. I got it through Google Classroom. So you're not through Google Classroom, through Share. So you're good. Thank you. Okay, so go ahead and grab your notebooks so we can start taking notes. Grab your notebooks so you can start taking notes. I'm going to take a few notes today. So everybody should have a notebook next to them, taking notes off the PowerPoint that I'll be writing on today, okay? So this you already took in your notes, but just to kind of recap on what we did for the budget. So the budget was pretty simple, right? We had an amount of money that we wanted to, that we could spend throughout the month. I told you guys that my budget was $4,200, and you guys saw me build my own budget in front of you, basically. And then you guys, I gave you the task of creating your own budget, and I gave you guys $1,700 just in thinking that after high school you're gonna work a minimum wage job and you're probably going to earn that much money. So it's hypothetically that's how much money you would earn, right? So maybe some of you will earn more, some of you will earn less, we don't know. But I wanted to teach you to see what it was like. Yes, you can do notes in the computer. What it was like to figure out what to do with $1,700. So for you guys right now, it may seem like a lot, but once you start seeing and sending your money towards rent, towards bill, towards food, towards the car, towards insurance, whatever, you see that $1,700 is not a lot of money. So my hope was that your experience with this budgeting thing was to see, I really need to get a better job than a minimum wage job, because it's really hard. You know, maybe some of you couldn't afford a car or can't afford going to a doctor because you don't have money. So hopefully this made you see that you really need to get a better job. Maybe not after high school, but go to school for it. You know, study, go to college or whatever school you want to go to, trade school, learn how to do something and make money off of it. So how to budget. Here are some general guidelines. First, prioritize your expenses. And we said the savings is like another bill. You need to treat your savings like another bill, like something you have to pay. And of course, you're not paying to anyone, you're paying to yourself. But savings should be a priority in your budget. In fact, the budget that we were making when we made ours, the budget has, let me go to it really quick. The budget has the savings at the top along with the giving. And I did say if you're not giving money to anyone, then you can't do it, right? But the budget that I gave you guys, here it is. You don't need to go to it. I'm just trying to go over some of the stuff that we did. So the budget that I gave you guys, the monthly cash flow plan, has savings at the top of the priority, right? And then after that, your house, because it's essential to have somewhere to live, right? Then your utilities, then your food, your clothing, your transportation, your medical or health. Then you can go into the not that they're not important, they are important, but finally you have your insurance, your personal care, your shampoo and stuff. You can survive without the latest and most expensive makeup. You can survive without that, but you can probably not survive if you don't have enough food, right? So those are the essentials. So notice the budget prioritizes essential bills, food, housing, car, etc., and savings. And then, of course, the rest of the stuff, entertainment, credit cards, makeup, all the stuff that you could survive without. That's how it's done. And of course, in here, you do the math, you have a budget, you minus your expenses, and you should have a zero. And if you didn't have a zero, you can always add it to your savings or to your pocket money. So that's how we did budgeting. Now, I was talking to Anastasia, and she asked me, why are we doing math, or why are we talking about money during English class? Well, very simple. We're talking about expository writing, okay? And expository writing is writing that explains things to you. So all the readings that we've done one reading so far. We did Dave Ramsey's chapter. He explained to you how to build an emergency fund, right? That's expository writing. Those of you who read How to Build Credit, that's expository writing. When we are done with this unit, guess what your essay is going to look like? They're going to look like how to do something, if it is an essay or I decide to do another project. But that's expository writing. It's writing that teaches you how to do things. And what else better than to learn about something that's real? It happens in your real life. You have to be able to budget to live off. You have to know how much money you have and how much money you're spending. And so today, drink a little bit of water. Today, we're going to start talking about credit. And I'm going to be basing it off this article that I found for you guys and that I had you guys read and take notes on. If you've never read it, then we're going to now read it. But of course, there's homework attached to it. Yes, who spoke?
Me, Anastasia.
Yes. Go ahead, honey.
Can you go back to the last slide real fast? Just real
Absolutely. Quick. Yes, I can go back. This one?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Grab your notes. Okay, so I'll wait for those of you who are still taking notes. And then go ahead and start your new notes, or underneath that, whatever you're putting your notes, the question, how to build credit. So today I'm going to teach you a few things about credit and what credit means.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. So first of all, what is credit? Does anybody know what credit is? It's usually associated with something called a credit score. So does anybody know what a credit is or what a credit score is? Anybody heard of it? Want to take a guess?
Isn't credit where it's like a trust between you and your bank?
Yes, it has to do with trustworthiness. Anybody else? Credit score.
If you don't have a high credit score, a lot of people won't rent houses to you.
Yes.
Or it's harder to get a loan from the bank to like buy a house or buy a car.
Yes, perfect. That hits right on the top of the head. So what is credit then? Credit is how much can a bank or a financial institution can trust you if they allow you to borrow money. So that's your credit. Credit is how much a financial institution can trust you. And has to do with debt. And yes, we don't like debt, but in this case, credit is taking when it's built. Credit is formed when a person borrows money, and borrowing money can mean a loan, a mortgage, a car, right, out of the dealership, or a credit card. And who are you borrowing? Oh, there's even those payday loans. I don't know if you guys seen those payday loans, like title loans where you have to give up your car title to get money. All those are also institutions that allowed you to get money. So you go and borrow this money, right? And if you have no credit, meaning you've never borrowed money, maybe they're not going to let you borrow money at all, or maybe let you borrow a little bit. So the credit that you have, if you've ever taken credit or not, the score that you have is going to tell them that they can trust you with the money they're letting you borrow. Okay, so how do you build your trustworthiness then? Well, number one, most importantly, is to actually pay back money on time. So if you borrowed money for a car, if you borrowed money for a credit card, or in way of a payday loan or a title loan, you need to pay your money back on time. And that's, I cannot, let me like underline it. A lot of people fall into debt, bankruptcy, and all sorts of trouble because they have not been able to pay back their money on time. Like they miss a deadline, they don't have enough money to pay back, and so they fall into this big hole and they end up ruining their credit. Okay, how else do you build your credit? You want to borrow as little as possible. Okay, why borrow as little as possible? Well, if you borrow $100, it's easy to pay back $100, right? You say, let me borrow, you go to the bank and say, I need a loan for $100 for next month. They give it to you, right? And you pay it back on the day that you said you're gonna pay it back on April 26th. You pay it back that day or the day before, you're good to go, right? But if you borrow, let's say you borrow, I don't know, $1,000. Let's put it $2,000. So $100 versus $3,000. Which one is easier to pay back? Pretty obvious, right? $100 is a lot easier to pay back than $3,000. Now you may need $3,000, but it won't be as easy to pay these back the next month in full. Okay, so a lot of people borrow too much money and then they can't pay it back, and that's when they fall again through the cracks. Okay, how else? If credit is the trust between you and your bank, or the trust that the bank gives you when you are trying to borrow money, how do you build good credit? I'm going to say, don't miss payments. Which also has to do with paying your money back on time, but do not miss payments. If you are falling into, I can't pay this month, you need to talk to the bank. Don't go, like you guys said, don't go MIA on them. You have to talk to them. Okay. Now let's go back to the article. So here's the article for you guys. And it talks about a credit history. So let me focus on that just a bit. What is a credit history? Well, when you start, move on to the next slide. What is credit history? Let me know if I'm moving too fast, or if you need to go back to the last slide. I can always do that for you. Okay, so moving on. What is your credit history? Well, credit history has to do with how much time have you started your credit, and how much time have you started, how much time, sorry, has passed since you started your credit, and how well have you paid it off? So when most of you are out of high school, right, you'll start your job, and let's say you get a credit card at 18. So you borrow money, right? You get a credit card for, I don't know, $300. So you have a credit card at 18 years old. That's when you're gonna get out of high school, right? And your credit card is worth $300, right? That's how much money you have in your card. That's how much money you can spend for your credit card. And you started nice. You pay off your card every month, pay on time, etc. Right? So you behave pretty good. You don't spend over the limit. You don't max out your card or anything like that. So you pay off what you owe, right? Or even a loan if you want. But then you lose your job, right? You don't have any more job, and then so this is like a little scenario where you then stop paying on time because of job loss. And then you max out the credit card. And here, let me go. Okay. And what happens as a result, so this is kind of when everything went south, right? Let me highlight that. You were doing really good. You got out of high school. You got this little credit card to start your credit. Make sure that, you know, you had really good thing. But then somewhere along the lines, you lost your job and you couldn't afford to pay it back, the money that you borrowed each month. And by the way, $300 per month. So getting a credit card is like borrowing money every single month, okay? I know, why would somebody do that? But that's how you start. Okay, so you max out your credit card, and now what you have is a bad credit score. Okay, so how does this work? When you start your credit, sorry, let me finish answering what is credit history. So credit history is the time you started borrowing money at 18 years old, all the way until you die, basically. How much credit you have is based on your credit history. And history has to do with paying it well, or if something goes wrong, not paying it well anymore. So how does that work? Well, how does credit work? And I'll stay a bit on that so you can take notes. Again, this is a little scenario that I gave you to kind of explain credit history, but it's basically how much time has passed since you started your credit and how well have you paid it off, your debts, basically. How well have you managed it? So
on the last slide back, what was number 3? I missed it.
Absolutely. Number 3 was don't miss payments.
Okay.
So it's kind of how to build it. And now we're just getting into, okay, well, what is this? You know, how do I even manage it? This is how we can build, and I'm giving you guys a bit of, get to that. How do you manage? And by the way, this is all factual stuff. This is not fiction. I didn't read it in some book. No, I have a credit score myself that I built. So I know what I'm talking about, okay? And till this day, I have not fallen into debt. Thank God. I've always had a job and whatnot. But judging different situations, and I've seen a lot of people lose their jobs and lose their credits with that. That's why I'm trying to teach you this stuff, okay? All right, so if we had this little scenario, this guy started at 18 years old, got a little credit card for $300 a month. That means he pays it off, borrows another $300 every single month, paid off, pay on time, all the good behaviors, right? But then he stops paying on time because of his job loss. He starts maxing out, so using the credit card over and over and over again. And the result is a bad credit score. So now let's talk about credit score. So how does credit score work, or how does credit work? So it works by allowing a person to borrow money each month. Okay, and the easiest way to do this is through a credit card. I don't know if any one of you have heard the saying, or the most silly saying. I know I heard it once. Somebody said, oh, I got a car. Like they bought a car at the dealership because they wanted to build their credit. That's about the most dumb thing anyone can do. Okay, and I'll explain why. But the easiest way to build or to start credit is through a credit card, and I'll show you how. So when you're 18, you go to the bank and you ask for something called a secured credit card. Okay, and according to the article, here's the section for secured credit card. Okay, but since I don't have that much time to go over the article, and hopefully you read it, a secured credit card is a card with a limit that requires a deposit upfront. So now I won't put this into the notes. You're 18, fresh out of high school, ready to start your life. You're going to go to school, or you're going to work. I don't know what your situation, but what you want to do is go to the bank and request a secured credit card. Let me put that. This is not any kind of credit card. In fact, if you go and ask for a credit card, a normal credit card, they won't give it to you because you have no credit history. You have no credit, basically. How can they trust you if you've never showed you can pay back, right? So you start off small. You start with a secured credit card, a card with the limit that requires a deposit up front. So what does that mean? So let me put a little scenario over here, and this one you do have to copy. We'll use Ruby for our reference. So Ruby's our person, okay? Ruby's 18, and she wants to begin her credit, right? Ruby requests a secured. Ruby, what's your favorite bank?
Chase.
From Chase. Okay, Chase asks, so this is the bank, right? Chase is not a person. Chase asks Ruby the following question: how much money do you want on your card? So Ruby, how much money do you want on your card? Remember, the less you borrow, the less you have to pay back. So how much money would you want?
Like 150.
There you go. That's a good answer. And Ruby says 150. Okay, so because this card requires a deposit, how much money do you guys think, or how much money do you think Ruby is they're gonna ask you for? How much money in deposit do you think they're gonna ask you for?
$50?
No, the whole thing. So they're gonna ask you $150. Why? Well, think about it. They're letting you borrow their money, right? And they don't know you. They don't know if you can pay them back. So they're trying to secure their money by asking you for a deposit of $150. Why? Well, if Ruby loses her job and can't pay her credit card back, those $150 that she put in, they'll use. Once the card has matured, so once the card has matured, Ruby will get back her deposit. So it's not money you're losing, it's just money you're putting there sort of as a security for them, that you're not just gonna go MIA on them, spend all their money, and then not pay back. right? That's what they want you to have. And a secured credit card will decline, meaning, Ruby, what's your favorite store to shop at?
American Eagle.
Okay, so Ruby goes to American Eagle. She found these amazing jeans with the top and some shoes, and I guess that's about it. And she says, "Oh, I don't have money, but I have my credit card." And she charges 150. Let's say it's 160 total, right, for her clothes and shoes and whatnot at American Eagle. If she uses her credit card that she's never used, right, but the amount is 160, do you guys think her card will go through even though it's a credit card? Will it go through?
No.
No, it won't, because it's more than 150, which is her limit. So it's a card with limited amount of money. And where does the limit come from? It came from the fact that she said, I only want to borrow 150. Okay, so secured credit cards will decline if you're past your limit. They won't even let you borrow more money if you pass your limit. That's why they're called secured, because they don't let you spend thousands of money on it because you don't have that kind of money, right? So how do you manage this? Go ahead and copy that. This is the best way, and I'm not advertising for anybody. I'm not paid in any way, shape, or form, but this is what I personally did to start building my credit. And I didn't do it at 18 because no one ever taught me. I had no clue. I was probably 20 something and I had no clue what credit was. I was so scared of that I was like, I'm not even gonna touch it. Credit cards, no way, Jose. Until I had this bad experience. I wanted to move out of my home into an apartment and nobody would rent me anything because I didn't have a credit score. I remember emailing the guy who was renting this apartment and I said, oh, you know, I have a job, I really want it. And then he emailed back and said, okay, email me your credit score. And I was like, I have no credit. And he didn't even respond back. Okay, true. Yes, Tara, I'll do that for you. So anyway, so I didn't have a credit score. I couldn't move out of my house because I didn't have a credit score. So I made a thing. I'm going to learn everything about it and then start building it. So that's what I did. I went to my bank, got a secured credit card. I got it for $300 because I thought it was, you know, that's how much money I wanted every month. And so that's my limit. I don't think if it's ever been declined because I've always, you know, not spent $300. But if I were to spend more than $300 and pass it, it won't go through. It'll decline. Okay. So that's what a secured credit card looks like. Now, how to manage a secured credit card. Remember, we are learning how to start your credit score, right? We'll talk about it a little bit more later. The best way to start your credit score is not to go $20,000 in today by buying a car. If anybody ever tells you, oh, you should buy a car so you can start your credit, no, say no to that. Run away as far as you can, because especially if you're 18, you should not be getting into buying a new car at the dealership. You're gonna go broke very soon, and you're gonna find out that you're gonna be unable to pay your car. So please don't do that, unless somebody's giving it to you, then yeah. But other than that, don't do that, okay? But how do you manage a secured credit card? First of all, here's one important thing. Do not spend all the money in it. The credit card is only for emergencies. Only spend for 5 to 10%. of the limit. So what does this mean? Somebody texted. Look at the, there it is. Okay, thank you, Seth. Okay, so here's a couple guidelines in what to do with or how to manage a secured credit card. Number one, do not spend all the money on it, okay, in it. Ruby, how much money did you had to spend every month for your credit card?
150.
150. So what's the advice? Do not spend $150, okay?
Yeah.
Just spend 5 to 10%. And it's gonna seem like, oh, well, why do I want a credit card anyway? Well, you're getting a secure credit card to build your credit, not to go into debt, not as your backup, okay? You should only spend 5 to 10% of the limit. What is 5% of 150? Do you guys know? Let's see.
$30.
No, a lot less than that.
$3.
Kind of there. Well, 10% of 150 is $15. 5% is $7. So 7 to 50.
That's not gonna do anything if you have an emergency.
Right, but you should not be using your credit card for emergency, like a huge. Okay, here's the emergency that I'm talking about. You lost your wallet, all your money in it, and the only thing you have left is a credit card. That's the only time when you should be using it. Or like one day that you were running out of food and you got a meal, like lunch for $15.
Or if
That's
you
it.
need
Nothing
gas.
else.
Or you need gas or
Or
something.
you need gas and you're in the middle of the nowhere, you have no cash, the only thing you have is a credit card. Yes, that's a real true emergency. You can't even access your emergency fund card in your bank because you lost your cards or whatever. It's like a major, major, major emergency, okay? Now, of course, you can spend the $150. No one's gonna limit you. No one's gonna be there like, oh, you should not spend 130. No, no one's gonna do that. This is what you should only spend. This is the recommended, okay? Why? Well, if you're a broke high school student, just out of high school, working to make ends meet, how easy will it be to pay the bank $15? How easy is that? Pretty easy, right? Versus pay those $150 that you should have not spent in the first place. Remember, you are broke. You don't have that much money, okay? $150 when you're broke is a lot of money that you should have not spent, okay? Because at the end of the month, when your cycle is over, you need to pay off all your debt. And I know a lot of people, and here's something funny, and I wish I had a little statement with me, but here's how it works. Credit card companies, once they see you start building your credit score, they're gonna send you like all kinds of offers and like, here, take our credit card. Or if you've ever gone to a store like Victoria's Secret, they're always like, the one thing they ask, I don't even think they ask how was your shopping experience. They ask, do you wanna get a credit card from our store? There's a reason for that, okay? So why do you wanna pay off all your debt? Simple, simple, simple. There is something called interest. And interest, when you have no credit, is super, super, super high. Okay, so I'm gonna explain to you how that works. So let's say Ruby was horrible and she spent all her 150. So she spent, here's another scenario, right? Ruby spent $150 from her credit card. She couldn't spend more because it declined, but that's how much she spent. The next month, so this is in February. She doesn't have to pay it back yet. She has to pay it back in March. In March, and here's what the bank will do, and they do it all the time. And Miss Denny, who's here, and if she has a credit card, she knows that that's the truth. They'll say, Ruby, like they send you a nice letter or an email, whatever. They said, Ruby, you only need to pay off This is the bank, right? Bank says pay off $25 out of those 150.
I'm literally so bored. I'm laying in the weirdest freaking position. Like, what am I doing?
I hope you know you're not muted. Okay, there she is. We muted her. Okay. All right, I'm gonna end some of this. So the bank says to Ruby, Ruby, only pay $25 out of those 150. Well, Ruby's smart and she doesn't want to do what the bank is saying, right? Ruby's gonna pay off those 150. But of course, if she would have spent just $7 to $15, no worry there. She just pays it back in full. But there's a lot of people that decide to just pay this $25. It's easy for them. They're like, oh, I don't owe 150. I only owe $25. So let me send the bank $25. So now they owe, right? They're in debt. Their debt is what's 150 minus 25? 125. So they owe the bank $125. Now the bank is super smart and they add to that interest. They add the interest. And let's say Ruby's interest is about, let's put something in the middle, 23 point, or just 23%. That's a high interest on debt. That's her interest. Okay, so I'm gonna teach you some super easy thing to do. Out of this $125, Ruby owes 23% of that added on to this 125. So what you do to calculate interest is you multiply 125 times, where's my times? Here, times, that means times. 125 times 0.23. And let me grab my calculator. So 125 times 0.23, that's equal to 28.75. So this is Ruby's interest for the month. Right? And guess what? Now you owe the bank. So Ruby owes 28.75 plus 125. The one that she was like, I'm just not gonna pay it off. So the next month in April, right? Because Ruby decided to just send those 25. In April, Ruby owes the bank. Let me add that. 125 plus 28.75. Ruby actually now owes $153.75. So this is how people go in debt. This is why people go into bankruptcy. Why? Because they spent money they did not have. Ruby did not have $150. She had a card that had $150, but she could not pay it back. She didn't have the cash to pay it back. So when the bank, and trust me, the banks they're sharks. Any bank is a shark. They want money. That's how else do you think they're gonna pay? They're gonna get their money. That's why banks are so wealthy, because they take advantage of people who don't know how it works. Okay, so let me recap. I'm gonna go back. I know you're still copying some of these stuffs, but let me recap. Credit is that trustworthiness between you and your bank, right? If you've ever borrowed money, you started credit, right? In any way, form, or shape, from a bank, not from a person. That doesn't let you build a score. But if you've ever borrowed money from a bank, from a payday loan, whatever amount, right? If you've ever done that, you start your credit score, right? Your credit history. And history is just Have you paid on time? Yes. Have you paid on time? No. That's what history is. It tells the bank or the people, this person, we can trust them. When she borrows money, she pays us back, right? That's what a credit history is. And then we started about a scenario having to do with credit, a secured credit card. We said, you know, you're 18 years old, you have a credit card for $300 a month, you started paying it off, but then something goes wrong. You lose your job and you max out your credit card, you can't pay it back. And so that led me to talking about a secured credit card. This is what you, as a high school student, this is what you should do. When you get out of high school, you should get a secured credit card if you have a job. That's, I would just put it out there. And like Ruby, don't put too much money on it. You know, put $100, put $200, something you'll be able to pay back easily. Don't go grab $1,000. That's not realistic enough, okay? And a few things on how to manage it. Do not spend all the money on it, okay? That's not your money. That's just money the bank is letting you borrow. But the less money you spend, the better, because you're gonna be able to pay back very easily, okay? We said that a good cap, a good rule of thumb is 5 to 10% of that limit. And to pay, so that would get you to pay $15 versus paying $150, which is a lot easier, right? Now, why do you want to pay all your debt? Because of interest. And interest for Ruby, because she never had a credit score before, is really high. Her interest is 23%. That's like super high. But here's the scenario, right? She spent the whole money, so she violated the rules. Kind of went ahead, maybe she had an emergency, right? And in March, February, March, yeah, in March, the bank sent her a little letter saying, hey, you owe us only 25. Don't worry about those 150. You can just send in 25 bucks and you're good to go. And Ruby takes it, right? She goes through it, pays only 25, and now this magical number called interest kicks in. And we did the math for it at her percentage with her debt, right? And this is what the bank is earning in return. So now, come April, the bank has a new number for you. You don't owe them $125. You owe them $150, and you gotta pay, or else. That's how it works, okay? All right, so I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna post a Google Classroom question that you're gonna answer today, okay? And it's a very easy question. Create. It's not a quiz. Sorry, not a quiz. It's a question. It's a discussion board question. So this one you don't need to reply. You just have to don't need to reply to somebody else. You just have to answer it yourself. Okay. So I'm gonna say explain how does a secured credit card works. And of course in here, you're gonna answer that. That's gonna be worth 30 points. It is due today, Thursday, and I'm gonna make it be due by 6 p.m. And please write a paragraph. You can use my scenario or you can use somebody else's scenario. There you go. And you just attach it here. So the question is, explain how does a secured credit card works. I want to see that you actually did know how to do it. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the share right here. I'm going to stop